The church doesn't exist to make America more Christian. We should focus on bearing witness, not seeking political power, right? It sounds spiritual until you realize the pastors preaching this only have the freedom to say it because Christians before them made America more Christian through law and force. So here's what makes that position not just wrong, but logically impossible. Every law reflects someone's values. Every law is enforced through coercion and violence. So you already endorse force doctrine. You just want secular values enforced instead of biblical ones. Today, I'm exposing why this theology isn't just naive. It's intellectually incoherent and historically illiterate. So here's what's actually happening. Modern evangelicals argue Christians should bear witness and not seek control, that we're confusing the church's spiritual mission with political power. But this is a distinction without a difference. If Christians vote their consciences, laws will reflect Christian values. All laws are upheld through force and coercion. So unless you're saying we shouldn't call police or make laws or prosecute criminals, we all rely on force doctrine to uphold whatever values we ratify into law. The question isn't whether to use force. It's whose values that force protects. Picture a Nigerian Christian. Right now, Boko Haram, Islamic militants, are loading his daughters into trucks. He knows exactly what happens next. They'll be raped repeatedly, forced to convert to Islam, sold as slaves, or executed. His government won't help. The police won't intervene. Why? Because Christians have zero political power in his region, and a culture that never accepted Christian influence doesn't value Christians' lives. He's watching his daughters disappear, and American pastors are writing articles about how the church's mission is spiritual, not political, and we shouldn't seek to Christianize governments. Yeah, tell that theology to him. That situation exists because of whose values hold power. In parts of Nigeria, Islamic militants act as the de facto government. And in America, progressive values increasingly dominate our laws. Here's the position many American pastors are selling. The church isn't a political lobby or culture-shaping machine. We should bear witness, not seek control. Sounds humble, right? Sounds like you're choosing higher spiritual ground over dirty politics. Makes you feel morally superior to those Christian nationalists who want to force their values on everyone. But this worldview only works in societies where Christians already established legal protections through the exact political engagement you're condemning. You're standing on foundations built by culture warriors while lecturing everyone about staying spiritually pure. But here's what should make you suspicious. These same pastors quote scripture constantly. Speak up for those who cannot speak for themselves, for the rights of all who are destitute. Speak up and judge fairly. Defend the rights of the poor and needy. Proverbs 31, 8-9. I agree with all that, but they never explain the mechanism. How do you defend rights without law? How do you judge fairly without legal systems? How do you speak up for the oppressed if you have no power to stop their oppressors? It all sounds so spiritual, but when you ask how it actually works, the whole thing collapses. Here's what they're actually hiding from you. And once you see it, you can't unsee it. All societies have laws. All laws reflect someone's values. All laws require force to enforce those values. There is no escape from this reality. Every law you obey, every court ruling that protects you, every police officer who stops crime, that's force doctrine in action. There is no escape from this reality. Every law that you obey, every court ruling that protects you, every police officer who stops crime, that's force doctrine in action. By justice, a king gives a country stability, but those who are greedy for bribes tear it down. Proverbs 29, verse 4. Justice requires governmental authority exercised righteously. You can't have justice without law. and you can't have law without force. Every single law requires force to mean anything. When you call police because someone broke into your home, that's force doctrine. When courts prosecute rapists, that's force doctrine. When governments jail human traffickers, that's force doctrine. All laws reflect values. All laws are enforced through coercion and violence. There is no third option. So when evangelicals say Christians shouldn't seek to make America more Christian, they're not advocating neutrality, because neutrality is impossible. They're advocating for Christians to surrender the monopoly on force to people who will absolutely legislate their anti-Christian values and enforce them through state violence. Watch what's actually happening right now. American law increasingly reflects progressive values. Gender ideology mandated in schools. Abortion funded by taxpayers. Biological males in women's spaces. These aren't neutral positions. They're aggressively anti-Christian positions enforced through law and backed by the threat of state violence. If we abdicate those domains to the enemies of Christ, we fail to protect the innocent and the unborn and our children from radical ideologies designed to destroy them. Righteousness exalts a nation, but sin condemns any people. Proverbs 14:34. How does a nation become righteous? Through laws. Who makes laws? Those with political power. How are laws enforced? Through force. So the actual position of these pastors isn't Christians shouldn't use force. It's Christians should surrender the monopoly on force to secular progressives, while we politely suggest that they maybe consider biblical values if it's convenient. That's not theological purity. That's civilizational suicide disguised as faithfulness. You cannot separate these. This theology attempts the impossible: influence without power, protection without force, and justice without law. And here's what should make you furious. This spiritual kingdom-only theology represents a massive break from Christian history, and the push for it came largely from people who hate Christ. For most of Christian history, from Constantine to Justinian to Charlemagne to the Reformation and beyond, Christians understood their faith should transform everything, including government and law. They built hospitals, universities, legal systems, and entire civilizations around biblical values. They didn't apologize for Christianizing culture. They saw it as obedience. Augustine wrote in The City of God, "In the absence of justice, what is sovereignty but organized robbery?" Christian rulers had a divine mandate to establish just laws reflecting God's character. Politics wasn't separate from faith. It was faith applied to governance. Then came the post-World War II cultural shift. Secular progressive pushed hard on the new narrative. Religion is private and spiritual and must stay out of public life, politics, and law. Keep your faith to yourself. Don't impose your values. Christians should just shut up and stay in their lane. And American evangelicals largely bought it. This retreat into Christian quietism represents a dramatic departure from historic Christianity. It's progressive propaganda dressed up in spiritual language, and Christians internalized it because it sounded humble and non-threatening. Meanwhile, secular progressives laugh while using government power to advance every anti-Christian value imaginable. They're legislating their values aggressively, while Christians stand down because we've been convinced that political engagement is somehow un-Christian. Here's why they're desperate to hide this history from you. When Christianity became legal under Constantine, Rome transformed. Hospitals, orphanages, and care for the poor exploded. Europe was Christianized through Christians who advised rulers and shaped laws and built Western civilization. North America continued this tradition, founded on Christian principles. When the righteous thrive, the people rejoice. When the wicked rule, the people groan. Proverbs 29, verse 2. If you knew that Christians have always legislated morality and built thriving civilizations doing it, You'd stop feeling guilty about it. And they don't want that to happen. Men, you can't unknow what you just learned. Every law reflects values. Force isn't optional. Christian political engagement isn't worldly, it's obedience. So here's what you do. Every time a pastor says the church shouldn't seek political power, ask a simple question. Then whose values should the police enforce? Because they will enforce something. Courts will prosecute based on some moral framework. Schools will teach some worldview. Government will either protect Christian liberty or crush it. There is no neutral option. Retreating from politics doesn't make you spiritual. It makes you a civilizational freeloader, enjoying protections built by Christians you now condemn while refusing to maintain them for your children. Rescue those being led away to death. Hold back those staggering towards slaughter. Proverbs 24, verse 11. You cannot obey this command without political power. Your ancestors built Christian civilization intentionally and unapologetically. They understood what we've forgotten. Christianity transforms everything it touches, or it's not really Christianity at all. Your children will either inherit Christian civilization or grow up in pagan tyranny. Stop believing lies. Start fighting for what they'll inherit.